So the Pittsburgh Steelers, in the opening game of their divisional slates, take down the Cleveland Browns 23-9 to improve to a 4-1 record, coming out of their bye week after the Dublin travel. In what was a pretty comfortable game. There wasn't a whole ton of things that really happened throughout the course of that game. I think that you know generally the team was very solid. Um, I think that the 23-9 score is still fair. I think there are still, some points of emphasis to kind of go into next week. But I think as a overall team performance, it was a very good, very comfortable win. So I guess kind of starting with the offensive side of the ball, this was the big matchup coming into this game that we had to keep an eye on was the Steelers offense against a very, very talented, a very productive Browns defense. I believe coming in, they were the second best at limiting teams running the ball. They were third best in overall yardage because I believe they were fifth in passing yards. They were tied for fifth in sacks. So they have a lot of talent. They have a lot of potential on that side of the ball. And I thought our offense as a whole played very, very well. Aaron Rodgers continues to be very efficient. I think there were a couple of moments where there was a good bit of pressure. I think against that Browns front seven, keeping the pressure off of Rodgers was always going to be a tall task. And so you might, but generally. Rodgers didn't get sacked today, which I think is a huge, huge thing to keep in mind. I think, he was very efficient, was getting the ball out quick, had a couple of deep shots. We saw a big involvement of Darnell Washington in the pass game today, which was very good to see. DK Metcalf had some very good showing. Spread the ball. I think, did a nice job at distributing targets and keeping the game efficient, keeping the game simple, and that is the big thing. Didn't make a lot of mistakes on offense generally. As a team, kind of later in this video, I'll kind of get into one of the critiques that I have. But, looking at stats, Rodgers, 21 of 30 for 235 and two scores. Of course, a lot of that is coming after the catch, but he also had a couple of nice deep shots. Metcalf, Washington to open up the play on a bit of a busted coverage. But that's not to say that there weren't misses. There was one kind of go route where Metcalf was just able to kind of blow by the man covering him, and Rodgers just underthrew the football. So there definitely were misses and things to work on. High throws, low throws, a couple of drops here and there. But in terms of an overall game plan, I think, came in with the right game plan to beat this Cleveland defense. As I said, Aaron Rodgers wasn't sacked today, and I think a whole ton of shout-outs deserve to go to the Steelers' offensive line. They played very, very well, not only in the pass game, but also in the run game. Steelers ended the game with 28 rushing attempts for 100 yards as a team. And again, against that Browns front seven, which has terrorized teams all season, which terrorized, honestly, better offenses the entirety of the season. I think generally we played very, very well. We had multiple runs of 10 yards. We kept the chains rolling. And again, importantly, didn't make significant mistakes. There were a good chunk of penalties in this game, so that was a bit of an issue. Maybe something to kind of keep in mind moving into next week when we take on the Cincinnati Bengals. But for now, again, very efficient on the ground, very efficient through the air. Ended up averaging 3.6 yards a carry. You take away the three kneels at the end from Mason Rudolph. That takes it to 25 carries for 100 yards. So we were averaging 4 yards a carry, which again against a defense helmed by Myles Garrett, who was really just a non-factor today. I believe he only had 2 tackles. One was a tackle for loss pretty late in the game. But he was really a non-factor the whole game when he's been very, very successful against Steelers teams in the past. And so that's been very, very good. Jalen Warren was running the ball pretty effectively. We saw him, shed a couple of tacklers very nicely. He ended the game with 11 carries for 52 yards. Didn't really, Steelers run game didn't really break out any super long runs. But, Jalen Warren had a long of 11. Kenneth Gainwell, 6 of 22, long of 10. Caleb Johnson started to get involved a little bit more, 6 for 15. His longest was 9, so there were definitely a couple instances in there where he was getting the ball and just really had nowhere to go with it. So that was a big thing there. And otherwise, again, I think staying efficient on the offensive side of the ball, especially as we face better, face these really good defenses later in the season. We play the Packers soon. We play the Chargers. Um, you know, play the Colts. All of whom have kind of leaned on that defensive side of the ball in the early parts of this season. Being able to do that against the Browns, I think bodes very well for how this season continues. As the offensive line continues to get meld kind of better and better. Obviously, we had a bit of a slow start, but you're starting to see more packages where we're working Spencer Anderson in as an extra lineman. We even lined him up at fullback in the game as he's kind of that sixth offensive lineman that we can work in there. Obviously, Darnell Washington, who I mentioned a bit earlier, not only being there in blocking sets, but using his big 6'7" frame as an easy target where, hey, he can catch the ball, carry defenders for 5 or 10 extra yards, and that just keeps the chains moving. And that's what this offense needs to be able to continue to do. Speaking of through the air, DK Metcalf, 4 receptions for 95 yards and a touchdown. Again, I kind of mentioned earlier, there were a couple of miscommunications, there were a couple of misses between Rodgers and Metcalf. He was targeted 9 times throughout this game. Some of that comes down to good coverage by the Cleveland defense, but there were also a good chunk of misses, a couple of balls that bounced off of the hands of DK Metcalf. So there's definitely still some stuff in there, but I think, again, utilizing the big frame of all the players that we have. DK Metcalf is a massive physical target who not only has the size, he also has the speed. So again, continuing to find ways to stay efficient, I think is the kind of thing for the Steelers throughout the rest of the year. Darnell Washington, 3 catches for 62 yards. It was great to see the Steelers' big body tight end continue to now get worked more and more into the pass game. And I definitely hope to see him continue to be more and more of a target that Aaron Rodgers and Arthur Smith utilize over the course of the season. That was very good. Johnny Smith was on the board 3 times. Kenneth Gainwell, 6 for 14. Steelers through the air generally 21 completions for 235 yards. Again, you don't necessarily need this Steelers offense to be putting up wild stat lines like we did necessarily against, I wouldn't even say against the Jets, really. But, if we can continue to be efficient, to dominate the game clock, which we did today, I think that is a big thing. Moving over to the defense, I think the defense was definitely something coming into this game that gave me a lot of confidence in winning this game, not only coming off a bye week, but the Browns offense just generally has not been very good this season. Obviously facing a rookie in Dylan Gabriel, who I think played admirably. I think that the big thing for the Steelers was limiting the Browns' rushing attack, which was a very big part of, kind of impacting the Browns' game plan. Browns ran the ball 17 times for 65 yards, had a couple longer breakouts, but that really wasn't until kind of later in the game. In the first half, it wasn't really until the 2-minute drill when the Browns kind of went up tempo, trying to get some extra points on the board. They started to see them put together any sort of offense. And I thought generally we played very, very well. In that up tempo where we started to get into a bit more softer zone, just tried to limit any super big plays, we did see some concerns start to come in. And Harold Fannin was the leading receiver for the Browns. I think Dylan Gabriel as well, it should be noted, 29 of 52 for 221 yards. But he was under pressure a lot. Again, a lot of just trying to get stuff happen because we stopped the run early on in drives, forced them to throw the ball. They did get a couple of long conversions that we need to keep in mind. But again, just continuing to that kind of complementary football, being able to have an efficient offense and have a defense that gets pressure, that forces mistakes, that brings it, makes it 3rd and long, that can force turnovers, which we didn't see today. Steelers defense did not manage to turn the ball over, but there were a bunch of instances where it was very, very close. There was about 4 or 5 instances where the ball probably should have been intercepted, but it just kind of bounced off of the hands of a Steeler and unable to come away with it. But generally, it was very, very good. The pass rush was excellent, and I think it was multifaceted as well. T.J. Watt got on the board with, I believe, half a sack in today's game. I believe, but it was, you saw a whole ton of people making an impact. It was Watt, it was Highsmith, it was Jack Sawyer late in the game. Patrick Queen, I think, has played really, really well this season. Uh, is really just flying around to the football. He's been very fun to watch. He had a very good game. Deshaun Elliott being back, I think, has really helped this defense just because he is in that hybrid safety role where he can come down the field, finish tackles. He was our leading tackler today with 12. He's played very good. Jalen Ramsey in the pass rush, also that kind of opens him up. Having Deshaun Elliott back, having Joey Porter Jr. back, allows Jalen Ramsey to be in more of that hybrid role as well. He picked up 2 sacks today, one early in the game and one late to try and put the game on ice. So Jalen Ramsey played very well. Um, a whole bunch of other people. Derek Harmon popping up with a good chunk of tackles. Peyton Wilson came away with 7, including 1 for loss. I think it was a very good team effort, and especially late in the game where we were able to, even with the Browns, trying to drive late, trying to give themselves an opportunity to close it to 1 score with about 3 or 4 minutes remaining, try and give themselves an opportunity to take an onside kick. We still felt confident enough in the depth to let Cam Hayward, to let T.J. Watt come over to the sideline, have a breather and not risk them getting hurt, and still had that confidence in the next levels of the defense to be able to put stuff together. Something I actually want to highlight from when that happened was Jack Sawyer looked very, very good late in the game. Had a bunch of very TJ Watt-esque jumps off the line, like just anticipation of the snap, timing it up perfectly and just exploding. I think he could be a very interesting player to watch as this continues. Cole Holcomb as well has kind of rotated back into this Steelers team well. Peyton Wilson was very solid. So I think, again, you had a very good team effort, and I think that started with stopping the run because we were able to make the Browns very one-faceted, very one-sided, despite the fact that they still put up some solid yardage, especially as they turned up the tempo. The Steelers, again, you don't want to be a bend but don't break defense all the time. I think preferably, at least from my perspective, I would rather see a defense that, hey, we don't bend at all. We're just going to bounce people back. But in the National Football League, that's not going to happen all the time. And so I think when you have a defense where, again, confidence in depth, keeping teams out of the end zone is the big thing. And even, again, Mike Tomlin is very good coming out of bye weeks. He's very good against, the Steelers under him have a very good record coming out of bye weeks and against rookie quarterbacks. I still think that it is a very good sign when you're able to effectively have a game where, you kind of, we had a couple of field goals to start, but once we got into the end zone in the second half, the game really never felt in too much doubt after that point. Pivoting to, I guess, as a team briefly, penalties were a bit of an issue today. Steelers coming in were the least penalized team in the NFL, but we picked up a lot of penalties in today's game. I believe we ended with 9. Let me check stats here. We ended up with 10 penalties for 59 yards, and some of those were really back-breaking. Opening punt return, that would have put us put us at the Browns' 40. We ended up being pushed all the way back to our own 10-yard line. There are a whole bunch of instances where it was T.J. Watt lining up offsides, which I think some of those were questionable, and he was definitely unhappy with the officiating there. So I think there's definitely concerns that that need to be addressed. We need to make sure that we're not penalized as much, especially as we face tougher and tougher opponents. We face Baltimore down the road. When yes, they've started 1-5, but if they get healthy, they will still be the Baltimore Ravens, and they still have the potential to be very dangerous. The Packers, the Colts. So we can't afford to be making those kind of mistakes because at the end of the day, those are just mental mistakes, and so cutting those out will allow this team to continue to be more competitive. And that was really the one major downside from this game was the penalties. I think as well, special teams was generally pretty solid. Obviously, there was the big punt return that got wiped out, but otherwise there weren't too many mistakes. Chris Boswell did go, I believe, 3 for 4 today. His one miss coming late in the game. Steelers had an opportunity to go up 17, but the field conditions were pretty bad today. So that should be fixed hopefully be fixed. Chris Boswell actually slipped on his final field goal attempt, and so that led to the lone miss. So I would argue not as much his fault. And so again, we'll kind of see how that continues to go the rest of the year. But overall, I think very good win. Obviously, it's great to come away with a win at home against a divisional opponent, against a very good defense. And I think that, again, this adds to more positives from the Minnesota game, where Minnesota was a very good defense as well, but we were efficient with the ball. We were able to establish the kind of run game a little bit better at points, and I think it even got better in today's game. And so it's about using all of these games as stepping stones, continuing to build confidence, especially as we get into the meat of the schedule. But at the end of the day, Steelers improve to 4-1 and remain at the top of the AFC North, extend their lead to a game and a half at least, considering they've already had their bye week and the Bengals lost during that is the next closest. They're actually playing the Packers right now, tied at 0. So we'll see how that game pans out. But again, continuing to work, continuing to build off of success and go from strength to strength is going to be key to the rest of the season. And we're starting to get some hope that, again, still very early, still a lot of things that could happen. But again, we're continuing to see good signs of growth for the Steelers team. The final score, 23-9. And yeah, that's about it. So, of course, thank you for watching if you did. And wherever you are, hope you have a great rest of your day.